Okay, our topic for today is commitment. Now, they say that you've got to be committed to yourself before you can be committed to others. And it is true. But if they don't put a capital S on that self, it'll never do. And people get very mixed up about this. They honestly think that if they could commit to their ego, that would somehow get it and move them along to the next step. Now, a lot of people tried that, and you can tell because I have not yet seen a person who, taking the conventional view of commitment to self, which is essentially sort of a blurry view of seeking God and truth, but basically essentially committing to their ego, their wants, their needs, and so forth and so on. That blurry little hodgepodge of disturbed and distorted concepts. I don't think anybody here can tell me of a single instance of an individual who committed to that blurry hodgepodge of concepts, what they call committing to themselves, who ever in any occasion or instance was able thereafter to commit to anyone else. As soon as somebody tells me of a single instance of the thousands of people that they've known or heard of who have actually followed this dogma and committed to themselves first and loved themselves first and then subsequently loved anybody else except a child. I'm talking about a peer. Okay? Because the biological bond beats the ego. Okay? So that's not fair. Okay? We've got to have an optional relationship here to call it a real love relationship, not a biological bond. Okay? Now, come on. Okay? Nobody has shown me, I have not seen or heard of, in the thousands of people that I've talked to, a single iteration of an individual who pursued the philosophy of loving themselves first, or of committing to themselves first, who ever did anything second. They were gone. They never got out of it. They committed to themselves first, second, third, fourth, fifth, ad infinitum. They never were able, subsequent to making a massive commitment to their ego, to manage a single productive relationship with a peer. There are those who have committed to themselves first, but they committed to the capital S self, and the capital S self kicks ass. It's not a collusion. It's not a delusion. It doesn't say, for example, your inner guidance for today is to go buy yourself, an Arabian. Right? And then to arrange your knickknacks all on the shelf and have it be a perfect love snare. This is not the thing, okay? And I mean this in a nice way, right? But honestly, okay, when people follow that type of inner guidance, whatever this could, I don't know. But whatever it is, this fucking inner maniac, egomaniac guide, okay, that's, moving them towards the right deals, right, and causing them to arrange everything in the proper order, okay, that suits their fancy, okay. This is not spiritual guidance. No. Those who commit to the self, okay, get their butts kicked because of the fact that the self doesn't have any quarter for the ego. The self couldn't care less about it, one way or t'other. Okay? That doesn't mean that the self doesn't realize when to get off it because the person's a hopeless wreck and they're going to do their own damn thing anyways. Self knows that perfectly good, but it doesn't collude. Huh? It does not essentially recommend or invite or move people in stupid dead-end directions that are all ego-driven and ego-defined. It does not do that, ever. Not once. It's too smart for that horse shit. So the people that commit to self, capital S, they are on an increasing path and they will love others in season, huh? But they will do it because of the recommendations of self and following those recommendations of self, capital S, that wean them from their egotistical ways progressively over time, okay? That's what the self actually does. Until they can love, okay? So when we talk about commitment now, in those terms, okay, let's start talking about commitment to others instead of just commitment to self. And others are a part of self, capital S self, so the whole thing really works, okay? You see? There are only a few 100 million hippies, okay, and self-deluded seekers after so-called ego truth, okay, that actually think that the pursuit of capital S self is the exclusive search for one's own ego. Truly, the pursuit of self, if it is indeed the capital S self that we truly are talking about, could not be, by definition, the pursuit of anything exclusive or personal. The self is not that. The self is big, big. You know, like they say in the pizza company, how big? Big. You know? The self is big, big. Huh? How big is it, JD? Big. Right? It's big. Big, big. This big. Right? $12.99. Feed a party of 16. Right? Plus you get a free whistle. Right? You know, home delivery. Okay. Right? Big. Like a 3-foot submarine sandwich. Big. The self. Bigger than one person can eat. The self. The true self. The spiritual reality. Self. Okay. So when we talk about commitment in terms of commitment to other people now, being specific about commitment to other people, self-centeredness, and we mean small s, is out. When you talk about commitment, in real life terms, practical terms, world terms, real terms, marriage terms, matehood terms, friendship terms, okay? You're not talking about a self-centered arrangement in truth. This is a shock to every American citizen, okay, to think that a commitment to another person could in any way be different than a commitment to their own ego. This is a shock. This comes as a real blow. The very suggestion of it, to say that a commitment to another person is different than a commitment to your own ego, is different in some way, anyway. But it is. I don't think you have to be a rocket scientist. The obvious fact of the matter is commitment is for other people. Commitment is to other people. In the social sense of the word commitment, self-centricity is out. Inconstancy is out. If you're going to commit to somebody else, you have to be constant, you have to love them, you have to be there for them, you have to, all this them shit, you know. People are going, I'm committed to me, I don't get this program at all, you know. You know, what's totally in it for me, I mean, you know. And I'm on Jack, okay? Jack is in it for you, and I don't mean that Jack. I mean jack shit. Do you see what I'm saying? Jack shit is in it for you in your lovingness. A lover demands Jack in the front. Expects Jack in the front. A lover doesn't even ask for anything until such time as the fact that they've given what they've given starts to hurt the other person through guilt. Does that sound radical enough? The lover really cares about the other individual. This is enough to make your dentures fall out. This is a totally radical concept. But this is what love is. It's when you really are committed to the other person. You can't get anybody in the personalist column to buy this concept. You can't get anybody in the United States to look at this squarely except a few select Marines that are willing to look at the damn thing, square in the face, and try to figure out in their own integrity and their own wisdom what love really must mean logically. Love must really mean that you care about the other person. Love really must mean that you end up serving the other person, living for the other person, doing for the other person. All that bad news to the ego. That's what love actually means. We can't make that go away. We can't make that any worse or better than that. Therefore, commitment to other people is for other people. Self-centeredness is out. Inconstancy is out. You got to be there and be there. Right? Collusion is out. Why is collusion out? Because collusion is destructive to another person. So you go, well, it's a lot easier to collude, isn't it? If I try to call them out on it, aren't I going to get a pie in my face? The answer to the question is a resounding definitely. Now, what do you want to do? Okay, now it's a choice between you and them, right off. Straight away, let's look at it square in the face, okay? You're going to get a pie and love this person by calling them on it, or you're going to escape unscathed and you're going to participate in their destruction. You choose. Which do you think is the more loving? Right. Take the pie.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
When you say colluding how?
Well, let's say your friend is ripping you off in some way because she is self-centered to a fault. Okay? And you start to realize that she's developing a negative dependence on you. She's taken more than she's given. She's not realistic about the real rules of karma. She's not really realizing that she's not doing herself much good by making of herself a drain and a drag. Okay? Now, if you tell her this, of course, it's going to be difficult. It's going to be a difficult confront. Right? Yeah, and you could get the pie for it. If you can't lick that off and feel that that's sweet, you're going to end up in a place where you're going to collude. You're going to go, wait a minute, what do I need a pie for? It's been worse enough just serving this asshole. Right? Well, I'm saying continue to serve this asshole, but serve this asshole in truth by letting this person know what's really right and what it would take for her to rise to the next level. Even though you run a big risk of blowing her off or upsetting her because she doesn't want to think about that. Collusion is where you're participating in somebody's destruction and you're doing it because probably it's easier to make it simple. Let's say you had a dog, okay? This is typical, okay? It's easier not to make the dog get straight. But if you don't make the dog get straight, the dog's going to be miserable and you're going to be miserable and everybody that knows the dog is going to be miserable. Be lucky to live out its natural life. Okay? That's typical. Okay? It's going to be a ball buster and you know it to get this dog straight. Now either you roll up your sleeves or you basically participate in this dog's undoing. That's the way it goes. Same is true of people. People are made, not born. If you don't help them, if you don't set the right limits, if you don't hold the line, if you don't do all the things that are necessary, they're screwed. They're absolutely toasted. Their outlook is bleak. So I say the greater part of love is to go through it. Do it. That's the hard way, but it's the loving way. We've dummied up a concept of teachers, for example. The teachers aren't there to bust your butt. Oh, hell. Teachers are absolutely there to bust your butt. You don't like it? Hey, how else are they going to save it? You see what I mean? Nobody cares. That's why they're ducking the issues. Right? That's how you separate your friends from your enemies, basically. Your friends are willing to take the risk that the others aren't. Your true friends, your spiritual friends. You know. But when you confront these people, when you confront human beings, you're up against the programming of culture that's got a way it's got it wired in such a way that it's miswired and it's cross-wired. Everybody that looks at me and looks at my situation comes to all these conclusions right on schedule. Huh? Giving is rip-off. Devotion is degradation of the person who's devoted. Commitment equals death, the end of options, right? Recognition and honor equals brainwashing, right? If they think he's good, they're brainwashed. Service is slavery. Well, hell, you know, consider the source. The people that have these views are also the people that couldn't have a relationship on a bet that would rebel against serving their own spouse. They're actually trying to make out like they're going to have a relationship that's all about them. They're not going to have to give much. Devotion is completely out of the question. Huh? Commitment is dubious and sketchy and scary, right? Recognition is the same as basically death. Service is slavery. Why do it? That's their attitude. Now look at it. They've just taken everything that has anything to do with love and dissed the whole thing. What's left? Just their damn ego. Running amok. There's no discipline in it. There's no love in it. There's no nothing in it. There's no giving. There's just getting. You know. And people are attached to this like they're attached to their ego. You know. There was a bull out there in the pasture, okay? A grand, wonderful bull, okay? There was a little scuffly farmyard dog, you know, little jackal of a critter, right? You know, moving in and out between the legs of the bull, right? Then he looks up and he sees this amazing, monumental spectacle of lunch. There hang the bull's testicles. This is delicious. Where have my head been at? The piece that he doesn't completely recognize is the bull's attached to these. Okay? This is the one piece he didn't think of. Okay? This is the problem with gurus, okay? When they start to go after your ego, they don't entirely realize the relationship there, the love relationship, okay, between this person and their ego, okay? And yet, indeed, if you won't part with it, you're a mean son of a bitch, you know. There's a reason why they do these things. And I mean that in a nice way, okay? They're trying to remove a little of the bad temperament. You know, they know what they're doing. You know. But they've got to reckon on the fact that you're going to be attached to this thing, and they could easily get a pie in the face. You know, because of it. Okay, so we got what's out, okay? Self-centered is out, collusion is out, inconstancy is out. What's in? Love is in. Love is the recognition of the beauty and value of the other person. Love is self-sacrifice. Love is patience and long-sufferingness. If you get involved with anybody, you've got to be patient and long-suffering. That's part of love. If you don't like the kitchen, get out of the heat. You don't like the heat, get out of the kitchen, right? Embarrassment is a good part of it. If you're not willing to make a fool of yourself for love's sake, you're not going to get very far in relieving this person of their trip. You've got to lay your body down. You've got to make a real sacrifice of self to be able to help anybody. It's not always going to be easy. It's not always going to be pretty. You're going to end up making a fool of yourself. Trying to get their attention, trying to get them out of themselves somehow. If that doesn't appeal to you, love is not an interesting game for you. You ought to think about something else. Highway robbery, maybe. You see? Something like that. Okay, so that's it. Commitment is love. Commitment is self-sacrifice. Commitment is long-sufferingness. Commitment is patience. Commitment is willingness to lay your body down for the other. Commitment is willing to get rid of all your silly options about how you're going to get this and that, and out of the sea of all life, choose to make a commitment somewhere, sometime, somehow. Huh? All these people that are running around trying to assess their options and try to figure out what they're going to get out of it. They ask me a million questions. Well, what about this, and well, what about that? And it's all about protecting their nest egg in some way, protecting their trip in some way, protecting their ego in some way, keeping their options open, being willing to this and that, but not much. You know, to them, commitment is a horror idea. They don't have the slightest inclination for it. I see them come and go by the dozen. They literally are not prepared to love. It isn't about me. That same psychology, they're willing to apply that any place. Right? The only place they would make an exception if they think they're going to get a massive amount out of it. What's that? You see? It's not about commitment to somebody else. It's totally, I'm committed to me. I'm doing for me. So, let's be real. Love is not about self. Love is about other. Isn't it true? It'll never be convenient. Your ego will never be ready for it and will never be able to approve of it. So you have to decide, am I going to live beyond the ego, or am I going to keep trying to get it to approve of it? That's like trying to get McDonald's to approve of a Jack-in-the-Box next door. Good luck. You don't understand. The bull and his testicles have a very close relation. It's a real attachment. It's emotional. You know. Are there any questions about this?
I just think when you say, self to others, capital S self to capital O other. Right?
Yeah.
Just want to make that distinction. Or, spirit to spirit.
Love is, spirit to spirit, self to self. The self loves itself. And that's why when they speak of love, they always say, love is not really charity. Because charity is the movement of something from one thing to another thing. Right? Love is something much more intimate than this. Love is the service of self by self. You're serving, love thy neighbor as thyself. You literally treat this person as yourself. You afford them the honor that you would afford yourself. You treat them as you would be treated. right? And you recognize that they are you. That this is not other, right? And it makes the transaction divine. It raises it up a lot of notches into a whole nother level. It's not a loss for one to give to the other. It completely confounds the entire conventional delusion of giving equals loss, right? The other person, we've got to make a deal, you know, we've got to make sure that I don't get totally ripped off and you get totally aggrandized by the whole thing, you know. All this type of, negotiation is totally about ego and its egocentric view of the actual transaction. Love loves itself.